The war crimes trials took place on a neutral station at the edge of Galactic Council space. The station was old, built by species that had been traveling space for thousands of years. It had seen many trials before, but never one quite like this. The surviving members of the Vren High Command sat in clear containers, visible to everyone watching. Billions of beings across the galaxy tuned in to watch. They wanted to see justice for the attack on the Mercy's light. The evidence was presented by a human legal team led by Judge An Suyuk. He was a careful man, methodical and precise. He didn't rely on emotion. He simply showed the facts. The footage from the Mercy's light played for the court. Every being in the station watched doctors and nurses die at their stations. They watched Captain Han Jiwoo's final message. They watched the Vren commander's statement about mercy being weakness. But the most powerful evidence came from the survivors. Vren soldiers who had been treated on the Mercy's light and made it to the escape pods testified. They spoke about the medical care they received. They described how human doctors worked just as hard to save Vren lives as human lives. One Vren soldier, his voice shaking, told the court about Dr. Park Minji. "She operated on me for 6 hours. She saved my leg when other doctors would have amputated. When I woke up and panicked, she held my hand and told me I was safe. Then your weapons killed her while she protected a Vren child." The Vren High Command members showed no remorse through most of the trial. They had been raised in a culture that saw compassion as weakness. They believed they had been right to attack the medical ship. They didn't understand why the galaxy was angry. Then came the sentencing. Many beings expected execution. It was what the Vren would have done. It was what many victims wanted. Judge An stood to deliver the sentence. The chamber went silent. The defendants are guilty of war crimes of the highest order. They violated laws that every civilized species has honored for thousands of years. They murdered those who existed only to heal. They destroyed the sanctity of medical neutrality. He paused, looking at the Vren commanders. "Many voices call for your execution, but humanity did not fight this war to become like you. We fought to ensure that mercy remains sacred in this galaxy. Therefore you will not die. You will live and you will serve." The sentence was unusual. The Vren commanders would spend the rest of their lives working in medical facilities on border worlds. They would help heal the wounded from all species. They would learn what doctors and nurses do. They would understand what they destroyed. "You will save lives until your own lives end," Judge An said. "Perhaps then you will understand the value of what you destroyed." The galaxy watched this sentence with mixed feelings. Some thought it was too lenient. Others saw the wisdom in it. The Vren commanders would spend decades seeing the work that medical personnel did, understanding what they had killed. 1 year after the attack, a memorial was completed at the site where the Mercy's light had died. Every species in the galaxy contributed to it. The structure was massive, visible from distant space. It incorporated parts of the actual medical ship, preserved and restored. At the center of the memorial stood a statue. It showed Dr. Park Minji throwing herself over the Vren child, protecting the girl with her own body. The statue was made from the actual wreckage where Minji had died. Every detail was perfect, from her surgical gown to the determination on her face. The dedication ceremony was attended by representatives from every Galactic Council species. Billions watched across the galaxy. Admiral Yoon Jinho, now fully retired, gave the main speech. His daughter's name was on the memorial wall behind him. "We built this memorial not to celebrate our revenge," Jinho said, his voice carrying across space to every listener. "We built it to remember why revenge was necessary. My daughter died here. She died saving a life, expecting nothing in return. That is the most human thing possible." He looked at the Vren delegation, led by Commander Revan. The Vren wore black uniforms now, the color of mourning in their culture. The Vren Collective learned that attacking healers carries a terrible price. But this memorial is also a warning to humanity itself. We must never forget why we fought. We fought to ensure that mercy remains sacred. We fought to prove that healing is more important than hatred. His voice grew stronger. "We showed the galaxy what happens when you anger humanity. Now we must show them something more important. We must show them what happens when humanity heals. 50 new hospital ships have been built. They carry the names of those who died here. They will serve all species, including the Vren. Because we are human. We can be terrible in our wrath, but we choose to be better." The ceremony ended with a moment of silence for the dead. Nearly 2,000 names were read aloud, each one echoing through space. When it was finished, the memorial lights activated, creating a glow that could be seen from distant planets. 5 years after the Mercy's light was destroyed, the new hospital ship UHMS Park Minji was responding to a distress call in former Vren space. A mining accident had trapped 400 workers underground. The situation was desperate. Captain Lee Yuna commanded the Park Minji. She had been Nurse Choi Yuna before, a survivor of the original attack. Now she led her own medical vessel, carrying on the work that Dr. Minji had started. Her crew was mixed. Humans, aliens, council species, and even some Vren. The Vren medical personnel had volunteered, wanting to prove that their species could learn compassion. The rescue operation took 18 hours. The Park Minji's medical teams worked without stopping, treating burns, crush injuries, and oxygen deprivation. They saved 376 people. 24 died despite their efforts. Among the survivors was a young Vren miner named Kalos. He had been trapped for 16 hours, his leg crushed under fallen rock. As he recovered in the medical bay, he watched the human doctors and nurses work with the same care for everyone, regardless of species. Yuna came to check on him during her rounds. Kalos recognized her from the memorial broadcasts. "You were on the Mercy's light," he said quietly. "You survived the attack." "I did," Yuna confirmed. "Why do you still do this work? Why do you help us after what we did?" Yuna sat down beside his bed. She had been asked this question many times. Her answer was always the same. Because someone has to remember that mercy is not weakness. Someone has to prove that healing is stronger than hatred. Dr. Minji threw herself over a Vren child to save her. If I let anger stop me from helping people, then the ones who killed her win. She stood up, preparing to continue her rounds. We are human. We can be terrible when we need to be. But we choose every day to be better. That's what makes us strong. Kalos watched her go, something changing in his understanding of the universe. His people had thought mercy was weakness. They had been wrong about so many things. Across the galaxy, the 50 new hospital ships continued their work. They responded to disasters, treated casualties from conflicts, saved lives without asking questions about species or allegiance. Each ship carried the name of someone who had died on the Mercy's light. The Vren commanders who had ordered the attack worked in medical facilities, learning slowly what it meant to heal instead of hurt. Some of them began to understand. Others never would. But they all served day after day, saving the lives they had once tried to destroy. The memorial at the Mercy's light wreckage became a pilgrimage site. Young medical students from every species came to see it, to understand what their predecessors had sacrificed. They stood before the statue of Dr. Minji and made quiet promises to honor her memory by healing anyone who needed it. The Galactic Council passed new laws about medical neutrality. The penalties for attacking medical vessels were severe and absolute. Every species agreed to them without argument. They had seen what humanity did when those rules were broken. Nobody wanted to face that again. But more than fear, the galaxy had learned respect. They respected humanity's capacity for controlled rage. They respected the discipline it took to wage war with absolute determination while maintaining moral limits. And most of all, they respected humanity's choice to return to mercy after proving they could be merciless. 50 years after the attack, a young human cadet at the Naval Academy asked her instructor a question. The instructor was Admiral Bae Hyun, now very old but still teaching the next generation. "Sir, do you think we did the right thing? The war, the blockade, all of it?" Hyun looked at her thoughtfully. "War is never right, cadet. War is failure written in blood, but sometimes it is necessary. We didn't just punish the Vren. We sent a message to the entire galaxy. Medical neutrality is absolute. Attack our healers, attack any healer, and face consequences you cannot imagine." He pulled up a display showing the current positions of the hospital ships. The 50 vessels, launched after the war, have saved more lives than were lost on the Mercy's light. Medical neutrality is now sacred throughout the galaxy. No species would dare violate it. Was that worth the price? Ask the millions who've been saved because we made the rules clear. The cadet considered this. Could we do it again? Show that much restraint while being so angry? Hyun's expression became grave. "I pray we never have to find out. We walked a very thin line between justice and vengeance. We came close to crossing it several times. 6 months after the Mercy's light was destroyed, the Vren Collective was dying. Not from military defeat in the traditional sense, but from something worse. Their empire was being starved to death. Vren soldiers sat in outposts with no food deliveries. Their ships floated dead in space, out of fuel and unable to get more. Medical facilities ran out of supplies. Entire bases went dark as life support systems failed, and no replacement parts arrived. The mighty Vren war machine was grinding to a halt. On SciFiPrime, the Vren homeworld riots had begun. The civilian population was demanding answers. Why were supplies not reaching the military? Why were soldiers dying of starvation on their own bases? Why had the government attacked a hospital ship and brought this disaster upon them? The Vren High Command was fracturing. Some members blamed each other. Some wanted to surrender. Others insisted they could still win if they just fought harder. But they had nothing left to fight with. Admiral Yoon Jinho brought the entire human fleet to the Vren homeworld. 300 ships emerged from faster-than-light travel in a perfect formation around the planet. They didn't fire a single shot. They simply surrounded SciFiPrime and waited. Establish a complete blockade, Jinho ordered from the Indomitable. Nothing enters this system. Nothing leaves. No supplies, no ships, no communications except what we allow. Tactical Officer Park Jisoo coordinated the blockade with the precision of a surgeon. Every possible approach to the planet was covered. Every attempt to break through was turned back without violence when possible, with force when necessary. They have approximately 6 months of food supplies on the planet, Jisoo reported. Their industrial capacity can stretch that to maybe 8 months if they ration carefully. After that, they will face starvation. Jinho nodded slowly. Then we wait. No bombardment. No invasion. We simply wait and let them decide their own fate. It was a cruel kind of warfare. The Vren High Command watched human ships patrol the space around their homeworld, knowing that their people would start dying in months. Every day, the pressure increased. Every day, more Vren citizens demanded their leaders surrender. The Vren tried everything to break the blockade. They sent stealth ships. They attempted diversionary attacks in other systems. They even tried to negotiate directly with the Galactic Council. Nothing worked. The human blockade was absolute. Then the Vren made their final desperate gambit. They captured a council medical ship, an alien vessel with 300 medical personnel aboard. The alien were longtime allies of humanity, a peaceful species known for their healing arts. The Vren broadcast a message to humanity. Release our homeworld or we will execute the alien medical staff and their patients. You have 24 hours to respond. The message reached Earth and was immediately forwarded to Ambassador Kang Sora. She was in the council chambers when she received it. Every representative waited to see how humanity would respond. Sora activated her communication system and responded within the hour. Her voice was broadcast across the galaxy. To the Vren High Command, the alien people are our friends and allies. Their suffering wounds us deeply. But if we withdraw because you threaten innocence, you will simply do this again and again. You will learn that taking hostages works. She paused, looking at the alien delegation. The alien ambassador nodded slowly, understanding what Sora was about to say. You chose this path when you fired on the Mercy's light. You destroyed the sanctity of medical vessels. You murdered healers. Now you take hostages and expect us to bend to your demands. We will not. Continue the blockade, Admiral Jinho, no matter what the Vren do. The council chambers erupted in argument. Some species were horrified that humanity would let the alien hostages die. Others understood the logic. If humanity backed down, every species in the galaxy would become targets for hostage-taking. But what the Vren didn't know was that Commander Bae Hyun had already located the captured medical ship. His intelligence division had tracked it to a military facility on a Vren moon. For 2 weeks, while the Vren made their threats, human special forces had been planning a rescue. Lieutenant Kwon Seo-jun led the extraction team. 40 operators in advanced stealth armor launched from a ship that the Vren sensors never detected. They approached the moon facility in complete silence, traveling through space like ghosts. The facility had guards, sensors, defensive systems. It didn't matter. Seo-jun's team had trained for this exact scenario. They entered through a maintenance shaft that the Vren thought was too small for anyone to use. They were wrong. Inside the facility, the team moved with practiced efficiency. Stun rounds dropped guards before they could raise alarms. Cutting tools opened the sealed doors where the hostages were held. The alien medical staff were terrified, certain they were about to be executed. "We're human special forces," Seojun told them quietly. "Stay quiet, follow us exactly, and you'll be home in 20 minutes. The rescue took 12 minutes from entry to extraction. The hostages were evacuated to waiting ships. Not a single casualty among the alien staff. The Vren guards woke up hours later, stunned and confused, with a message written on the wall in their own language. "You cannot threaten us with harm to innocents. We will simply take them back, every time." When the Vren High Command discovered the hostages were gone, they felt something break inside their confidence. The humans could strike anywhere. They could rescue anyone. They were fighting a war the Vren didn't know how to win. Commander Revan, leader of the Vren Third Fleet, had been watching all of this from his flagship. He was a career military officer, born into a culture that valued strength above all else. But he was also smart enough to see reality. The Vren were losing. Not in glorious battle, but in a slow strangulation. Their people were suffering. Their military was collapsing. And all of it because their high command had decided to attack a hospital ship. Revan made a decision that would be considered treason by his government. He opened a direct communication channel to the human fleet. Not to threaten, not to demand, to ask for negotiations. The message reached Admiral Jinho on the Indomitable. His officers waited to see how he would respond. Jinho looked at the message for a long time. Engineer Lee Suho, one of the survivors from the Mercy's Light, was serving as a technical advisor on Jinho's staff. He spoke up quietly. "Sir, what do we want? Do we want revenge? Or do we want to make sure this never happens again?" Jinho looked at him. Suho had burns across half his body from the attack on the Mercy's Light. He had every reason to want the Vren destroyed completely, but his question was genuine. "What do you think?" Jinho asked. Suho was quiet for a moment. "I think Dr. Minji would want us to stop the killing. She spent her life saving people. All people. Even enemies. If we destroy the Vren completely, we become what they are. We prove them right that strength is all that matters." Jinho nodded slowly. He opened a response to Commander Revan. "We will talk, but not here. Come to the debris field where the Mercy's Light died. Come to see what your people destroyed. Then we will discuss terms." 3 weeks later, Commander Revan's shuttle approached the memorial site where the Mercy's Light had been destroyed. Human ships had preserved the wreckage, leaving it as a monument to what had happened. Revan looked out the viewport as his shuttle moved through the debris. Bodies were still floating there, frozen in space. Doctors in surgical gowns, nurses holding medical equipment, patients in their beds, and Vren soldiers wearing hospital identification bands, killed by their own military while recovering from wounds. The shuttle was silent. Revan's crew saw what their high command had done. They saw the price of their leader's decision to attack a medical vessel. The shuttle docked with the Indomitable. Revan and his small delegation were escorted to the memorial hall. The walls were covered with names and faces, nearly 2,000 of them. Every person who had died on the Mercy's Light Admiral Jinho was waiting there. He was an old man now, tired and worn from 6 months of warfare. Revan was younger, still strong, but he looked broken as he stared at the walls. "I did not know," Revan said quietly. "The High Command told us the ship was a military target. They said it was carrying weapons to our enemies." Jinho's voice was cold. "Did your soldiers not tell you different when they were rescued from our medical bays? Did the 200 Vren wounded aboard the Mercy's Light not report that we treated them the same as our own people?" Revan's expression was pained. "They told us. The High Command executed them as traitors. They said accepting help from enemies was weakness. They said mercy was weakness." Nurse Choi Yuna stepped forward. She had insisted on being present for these negotiations. "Mercy is not weakness," she said softly. "Mercy is the hardest strength there is. It takes courage to heal your enemy. It takes nothing to kill people who cannot fight back." Revan looked at her. He recognized her from the broadcast she had made months ago. "You were there. On the Mercy's Light, I was. I survived. Most of my friends did not." There was a long silence. Finally, Revan spoke. "What do you want from us? What will it take to end this?" Admiral Jinho handed him a data pad. "These are humanity's terms. They are not negotiable." Revan read the list. "Unconditional surrender. War crimes trials for the High Command members who ordered the attack." The news reached Earth within 6 hours. The Galactic Council chambers received the report at the same time. Ambassador Kang Sora was in a meeting when her assistant interrupted her. The young man's face was pale, his hand shaking as he handed her the datapad. Sora read the report twice. Then she stood up slowly and walked out of the meeting without explaining why. The other ambassadors watched her go, confused. They would understand soon enough. The footage from the Mercy's Light's black box was already spreading through human networks. Every human colony, every ship, every station received it. People watched doctors die at their stations. They watched nurses throw themselves over patients. They watched Captain Jiwoo's final message, his voice steady even as he bled to death. They watched the Vren commander's statement, "The weak deserve no mercy." For the first time in its history, humanity went completely silent. Every human ship stopped transmitting. Every human colony ceased all outgoing communication. Human delegates left the Galactic Council chambers without a word. Human trade vessels halted in space and went dark. Even the civilian network stopped broadcasting. The galaxy had known humans for 20 years. They were friendly, helpful, eager to prove themselves as the newest council members. They brought new farming techniques that ended hunger on several worlds. They mediated disputes. They ran hospital ships that saved millions of lives. They were kind. The other species didn't know what the silence meant. Some thought it was grief. Some thought it was shock. The older species, the ones who had seen civilizations rise and fall, began to feel uneasy. There was something in that silence that reminded them of dangerous times. On Earth, in the military command center, Admiral Yoon Jin-ho sat in a dark room watching the footage for the 100th time. He was 70 years old, scheduled to retire in 3 months. His daughter had been a pediatric surgeon on the Mercy's Light. Her name was Yoon Hana, and she had loved children more than anything in the world. The footage showed her dying in the children's ward, her body covering 2 small alien children. She had saved them. They made it to the escape pods. Hana did not. Jinho's hands didn't shake as he began sending orders. His voice was calm. Inside, something very old and very angry had woken up. Humans had spent millions of years learning to be civilized. They had learned to be kind despite coming from a world that tried to kill them every day. They had chosen to be gentle, but they had never forgotten how to be dangerous. The orders went out through encrypted military channels. Every human military ship received them. Every defense force. Every colony guard. The message was simple: come home. Bring everything you have. Bring everyone who can fight. Within 3 days, the human fleet began to gather. Ships emerged from patrol routes. Carriers left their stations. Battle groups abandoned their posts. Colony defense forces mobilized. Even merchant vessels with retired military crews began installing weapons. The Galactic Council watched this movement with growing alarm. They called for Ambassador Sora. She had been silent for 72 hours. Now she returned to the council chambers. The council chambers were ancient, built by species that had traveled space for thousands of years before humans even invented writing. Representatives from 23 species sat in their designated areas. They looked at Sora with expressions ranging from sympathy to concern to fear. The council speaker, a being that looked like flowing water given shape, addressed her. Ambassador Sora, we share your grief. The attack on the Mercy's Light was a violation of our most sacred laws. We will issue strong sanctions against the Vren Collective. We will demand reparations. Justice will be served through proper channels. Sora stood at the human podium. She was a small woman, barely over 5 feet tall. She looked like someone's grandmother. But when she spoke, her voice carried through the entire chamber. For 30 years, the Council has fought the Vren Collective. You have followed all the rules. You have respected treaties. You have shown mercy to enemies. You have tried to be civilized. She paused, looking at each delegation in turn. The Vren attacked a hospital ship. They murdered doctors and nurses. They killed their own wounded that we were saving. They have shown you that they don't care about your rules. They don't respect your treaties. They see mercy as weakness. The council representatives shifted uncomfortably. They knew this was true. Humanity tried to be like you, Sora continued. We tried to follow the rules. We tried to show that we deserved a place in galactic civilization. We sent our best people to save lives. We asked nothing in return, and they were murdered for it. She activated a hologram. The images from the Mercy's Light played above the council chambers. Every representative watched. Some looked away. The images were terrible. "This is what the Vren think of your rules," Sora said quietly. "This is what they think of mercy." She deactivated the hologram. The chamber was silent. "Humanity has a message for this council. We do not ask for your permission. We do not ask for your help. We ask only that you stay out of our way." "Ambassador," the speaker said carefully, "what are you saying?" "The Vren wanted war without rules. Humanity will give them exactly what they asked for. We will teach them what it means to anger a species from a death world. We will show them what happens when humans stop being civilized." A representative from the Threen delegation, an ancient species billions of years old, spoke up. His voice was a whisper that somehow carried through the chamber. "Ambassador Sora, do you understand what you are proposing? Do you understand where this path leads?" Sora looked at the Threen elder. "Yes, we understand perfectly. We come from a world where everything tried to kill us. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the smallest bacteria. We learned to survive despite that. We learned to be kind despite that. But we never forgot how to fight. The Vren are about to learn why." She gathered her materials. "The council may continue discussing this. Humanity is done talking." She left the chambers. Behind her, the representatives began arguing. Some wanted to stop humanity. Others said they should help. Many were simply afraid. The Threen elder spoke again so quietly that only a few could hear. "I am 3 billion years old. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I have seen wars that destroyed entire regions of space. I have seen only 3 species with this kind of controlled rage. 2 of them destroyed themselves in their fury. The 3rd conquered half the galaxy before we managed to stop them." Another representative asked, "What happened to the 3rd species?" "They learned mercy eventually, but millions died first. Pray that the humans are more disciplined than the others." On the human carrier Indomitable, Admiral Jinho stood before his assembled officers. The room was packed with captains, commanders, and specialists. Every human military officer who could reach the fleet was there. "You've all seen the footage," Jinho said. His voice was steady but cold. "You know what happened. The question now is simple. Do you want to make them understand?" The response was immediate and unanimous. Every officer in the room answered the same way. "Yes," Jinho nodded slowly. "Then here are your orders. We will find every Vren asset in 12 sectors. We will learn their patterns, their schedules, their weaknesses. We will take 2 weeks to prepare. And then we will show them the price of their mistake." Commander Bae Hyun, Chief of Intelligence, stepped forward. "Sir, how far do we go?" Jinho looked at him. "We do not kill civilians. We do not torture prisoners. We do not become what we fight against. But within those rules we will do whatever is necessary to end the Vren's ability to make war. They wanted to see humans without mercy. They'll get their wish." Throughout human space, the same conversation was happening. Soldiers who had served their time were volunteering to return to duty. Retired officers were coming back. Ships were being armed. Supplies were being gathered. The galaxy watched this mobilization with growing fear. Humanity had been in space for only 2 decades. They were young, new, untested in real war. But something about the way they moved, the cold efficiency of their preparations, made the older species nervous. A merchant captain from the Delvin Consortium sent a message to his government. "I've been watching the human fleet assemble. They're not acting like people preparing for war. They're acting like people preparing for an execution, calm, methodical, and absolutely certain of the outcome." The Vren Collective received reports of the human mobilization. Their high command met to discuss it. They were not concerned. Humans were weak. They had proven it by running hospital ships instead of battleships. They would issue threats, maybe attack a few targets, and then negotiate. That was how civilized species behaved. The Vren High Commander gave orders to continue normal operations. If the humans attack, destroy them. They will learn the price of challenging true warriors. On the Indomitable, Admiral Jinho received the intelligence reports. Commander Hyun's team had mapped every Vren installation, every supply route, every ship in 12 sectors. The data was complete. Jinho looked at his command staff. 2 weeks of silence. 2 weeks of watching them think they're safe. Now we show them they were wrong. He opened a communication channel to the entire human fleet. Over 300 ships waited for his orders. "All ships, this is Admiral Jinho. The Vren Collective believes we are weak because we chose to be kind." The attack began at exactly midnight Galactic Standard Time. 17 Vren supply depots in 8 different systems came under assault simultaneously. The Vren defenders barely had time to sound the alarm before human strike teams were inside. Captain O'Minho led one of those teams. His squad of 20 Marines moved through a Vren supply depot like ghosts. They wore powered armor that made no sound. Their weapons fired energy pulses that left no trace. They had trained for 2 weeks for this exact moment. Team 1, disable the food synthesizers, Minho ordered quietly. Team 2, take out the water purification systems. Team 3, destroy all medical supplies. A young Marine named Kim Subin hesitated. Sir, medical supplies? Aren't we better than that? Minho's voice was hard. They destroyed a hospital ship. They murdered doctors. Now they learn what it means to have no medicine. Move out. The operation took 12 minutes. When the human teams left, the depot had power and life support. The Vren soldiers inside were alive and unharmed, but every food synthesizer was slag. Every water purifier was destroyed. All the medical supplies were incinerated. The spare parts for life support systems were gone. The Vren soldiers could live in the depot for maybe a week. Then they would start to die slowly of thirst, hunger, and untreated injuries. They would have plenty of time to think about what their leaders had done. The same scene repeated at 16 other locations. Human teams struck with precision, destroyed what they came to destroy, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Not one human casualty. Hundreds of Vren installations rendered useless. The Vren High Command received the reports and were confused. These weren't military targets in the traditional sense. The humans hadn't destroyed the weapons or the ships. They had destroyed the ability to sustain life. It was a strange kind of warfare. They're amateurs, one Vren commander said dismissively. They don't understand real combat. But Commander Revan, one of the more thoughtful Vren leaders, studied the reports carefully. Or they understand it better than we do. They're not trying to conquer territory. They're trying to make it impossible for us to fight. Over the following weeks, the pattern became clear. Human forces didn't fight like the Galactic Council did. They didn't try to hold ground. They didn't issue ultimatums. They simply appeared, destroyed something critical, and disappeared. Captain Shin Hana commanded a destroyer squadron that specialized in intercepting supply convoys. She was Admiral Jinho's niece, and she carried her family's grief like a blade. Her orders were specific, and she followed them exactly. Target the cargo vessels only, she told her weapons officer. If the escorts run, let them go. If they fight, destroy them. But the cargo ships don't get through. Her squadron hit 6 Vren supply convoys in 10 days. Every cargo ship was destroyed. The escorts that fought were eliminated efficiently. The escorts that ran were allowed to escape. Within 2 weeks, Vren supply lines were in chaos. No convoy captain wanted to take the routes where humans were hunting. Commander Bae Hyun's intelligence division continued their work from the stealth ship Silent Watcher. They monitored every Vren communication, tracked every ship movement, noted every pattern. The information went to human strike forces, who used it to appear exactly where they weren't expected. A Vren outpost commander sent a desperate message to High Command. We have no food coming. We have no medical supplies. We have no spare parts. 3 of our reactors are failing and we can't fix them. We've seen no human ships, but everything we need to survive is being destroyed before it reaches us. How are they doing this? High Command had no answer. The humans were fighting a war of logistics, not glory. They weren't winning dramatic battles. They were simply making it impossible for the Vren military to function. On the Indomitable, Communication Officer Nam Ji-hoon monitored Vren transmissions. What he heard told a story of growing panic. Vren commanders were arguing with each other. Supply officers were reporting shortages. Ship captains were refusing orders to enter certain sectors because human strike teams seemed to know exactly where they would be. Admiral, Ji-hoon reported, they're starting to fall apart, not from defeats but from the pressure. They can't resupply. They can't repair. They can't predict where we'll hit next. Admiral Jinho nodded slowly. Good. Fear is a better weapon than missiles sometimes. Continue monitoring. I want to know what they're saying to each other. 1 month after the campaign began, humanity sent a message to the Vren Collective. It wasn't Admiral Jinho who spoke. It was Nurse Choi Yuna, one of the survivors from the Mercy's Light. She sat in a small room, her face calm, her voice steady. I am Choi Yuna. I was a nurse on the Mercy's Light. I held your soldiers while they died from their wounds. I stayed up for 30 hours straight saving Vren lives after a battle. I sang to your children when they were scared. She paused, looking directly at the camera. Dr. Park Minji was my friend. She was the best surgeon I ever knew. The last thing she did before you killed her was throw herself over a Vren child to protect her from your weapons. That child survived. Dr. Minji did not. Yuna's expression didn't change, but her words cut like knives. You murdered mercy itself. You killed people who asked nothing from you except the chance to help. You proved that your civilization values only strength. Very well. Humanity will show you strength. She held up a data pad showing a list of destroyed Vren installations. Every supply ship we destroy is a hospital ship you'll never build. Every outpost we eliminate is a medical station you'll never construct. Every officer we kill is a doctor you murdered. You wanted war without limits. You have it. The broadcast ended with footage from the Mercy's light. The galaxy watched doctors dying at their stations. They watched nurses shielding patients. They watched Captain Jiwoo's final words. The message went out on every frequency to every species. The Galactic Council saw it. Civilian populations across the galaxy saw it. And the Vren saw it. Some Vren commanders began to feel uneasy. They had been told the hospital ship was a military target. They had been told it was carrying weapons. Now they saw the truth. They saw their own wounded being treated. They saw the medical staff dying to protect Vren patients, but the Vren High Command refused to back down. To admit error would be weakness. Instead, they ordered a massive retaliation strike against human colonies. 3 battle groups were assembled and sent toward New Sol, a human colony of 12 million people. The Vren fleet commander was confident. The humans can attack supply depots and convoys, but they cannot stand against a real military force. We will destroy their colony and show them the price of defiance. The 3 battle groups emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Sol system. Over 200 Vren warships, the largest assault force assembled in 5 years. They began their approach to the planet. The planet was dark. No transmissions. No defenses. No orbital stations. They evacuated, the fleet commander said. They ran like cowards. His tactical officer was studying the sensor readings. Sir, I'm detecting unusual readings in orbital space. Lots of small objects. They might be. The first mine detonated. Then the second. Then 100 more. The orbital space around New Sol had been seeded with antimatter mines, thousands of them, placed precisely where a fleet approaching the planet would travel. The explosions were blinding. Ship after ship died in balls of white fire. The Vren fleet tried to retreat, but the minefield extended for hundreds of thousands of kilometers. They had flown into a carefully prepared trap. Commander Bae Hyun watched from the Silent Watcher, safely outside the kill zone. He had spent 3 weeks predicting exactly where the Vren would attack and exactly how they would approach. The mines had been positioned with mathematical precision. He opened a communication channel to the dying Vren fleet. You thought we were slow. You thought we were weak. You forgot that humans learned to survive on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We learned to think. We learned to plan. We learned that the smart predator doesn't fight fair. Welcome to the graveyard you built for yourselves. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 17 minutes. 3 Vren battle groups, over 200 ships, were reduced to debris. Perhaps a dozen vessels managed to escape by jumping to faster-than-light speed blind, a desperate and dangerous maneuver. The Galactic Council received reports of the destruction with shock. The Threen Elder made a statement that was recorded for history. The humans have shown the galaxy something important. They did not meet strength with strength. They met it with intelligence. They turned the Vren's own aggression into a weapon. This is either the beginning of peace or the beginning of something terrible. I pray it is the former. On the indomitable Admiral Jinho received the casualty reports. 0 human losses. Over 30,000 Vren dead. He felt no satisfaction, only a cold determination to finish what had been started. Send a message to all Vren installations, he ordered. Tell them this. Every attack they make will be answered. Every ship they send will be destroyed. We will not negotiate. We will not show mercy. We will simply remove their ability to threaten anyone, piece by piece, until they have nothing left. The medical ship floated quietly through space, its white hull marked with the red symbol that every species in the galaxy recognized. The symbol meant safety. It meant healing. It meant that those aboard would help anyone who needed it, no matter which side of the war they fought on. Captain Han Jiwoo stood on the bridge of the UHMS Mercy's light, watching the stars through the viewport. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been commanding medical ships for 15 years, and in all that time, he had never seen his ship threatened. Medical ships were sacred. Everyone knew that. Even in the worst battles, even when species fought each other with terrible weapons, they never touched the hospital ships. Behind him, Lieutenant Kim Dae-hyun checked the sensor readings. Dae-hyun was younger, a former soldier who had joined the medical corps after seeing too much death. He still walked like a fighter, but his hands were gentle now when he helped patients to their rooms. The ship had over 2,000 people working on it. Doctors, nurses, engineers, technicians, and support staff. They came from Earth and the human colonies, all volunteering to serve in the most dangerous parts of space. They treated anyone who was hurt, whether they were friends or enemies. That was the rule, and humans took it seriously. Dr. Park Min-ji was in the main medical bay, preparing for new patients. She was the best trauma surgeon on the ship, maybe the best in the entire human fleet. Her hands moved quickly as she organized supplies and checked equipment. Min-ji had saved thousands of lives during her career. She never asked who they were or why they were fighting. She only cared about keeping them alive. Nurse Choi Yuna worked beside her, calling out inventory numbers. Yuna was quick and efficient, the kind of person who could handle 10 emergencies at once without losing her calm. She had been on the Mercy's Light for 3 years and loved her work. There was something pure about it, she thought. In a galaxy full of war, they were the ones who made things better. In engineering, Lee Suho was checking the power systems. The ship needed enormous amounts of energy to run all its medical equipment. Suho made sure everything worked perfectly. A power failure in a medical bay could mean death for patients. He took his job seriously. The call came through just after the evening shift change. A refugee convoy had been caught in crossfire near the Helios Rift. Hundreds of people were wounded, maybe more. They needed immediate evacuation. Ji-woo didn't hesitate. Set course for the rift. Maximum speed. Send a message to all departments. We're going to have a full ship tonight. The Mercy's Light moved through space faster than most military vessels. It had to. Wounded people couldn't wait. Within 3 hours, they reached the refugee convoy. What they found was chaos. Ships were damaged and drifting. People were dying. The fighting had moved on, but the damage remained. The medical teams worked without stopping. They brought aboard the wounded in waves. Humans, aliens, soldiers, civilians, children, elderly. It didn't matter. Everyone received the same care. The doctors and nurses moved between beds like dancers, their movements precise and practiced. Min-ji worked on a Vren soldier who had lost his leg in an explosion. The Vren were the enemy, fighting against the Galactic Council that humanity had joined, but Min-ji saw only a patient who needed her help. She repaired the damaged tissue and stabilized him. When he woke up, confused and afraid, she held his hand and told him he was safe. They rescued 847 people that day. 200 of them were Vren soldiers. Ji-woo walked through the medical bays after the initial rush, watching his crew work. He felt proud. This was what humans did best. They didn't give up on anyone. Yuna was helping a young Vren child who had been separated from her family. The girl was scared and crying. Yuna sat with her, speaking softly until the child fell asleep holding her hand. Even in war, Yuna thought, kindness mattered. 3 days later, they were preparing to leave the rift area. The patients were stable. Some would be transferred to permanent facilities. Others would be returned to their own people. It was routine work. Dae-hyun noticed the sensor reading first. Captain, we have contacts approaching. Multiple ships. They're Vren. Ji-woo nodded calmly. That's expected. They're probably here to collect their wounded. Make sure all our identification signals are broadcasting. Let them know we're a medical vessel. But something felt wrong to Dae-hyun. He had fought Vren forces before joining the medical corps. He knew how they moved. Captain, they're not slowing down, they're increasing speed. They can see us, Ji-woo said. They know what we are. The Vren battle group emerged from faster-than-light travel close to the Mercy's Light. Too close. Daehyun's hands moved to the communication controls. Should I hail them? Yes. Tell them we're carrying their wounded. Tell them we're protected under the medical neutrality accords. The message was sent. There was no response. Minji was in Medical Bay 3, checking on her patients. Several Vren soldiers were there, recovering well. She smiled at them, pleased with their progress. They would survive. That was what mattered. The first shot hit without warning. A particle beam tore through the ship's outer hull and into Medical Bay 7. 16 people died instantly. The second shot followed 3 seconds later. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. Jiwoo grabbed his chair as the vessel shook. What's happening? They're firing on us. Daehyun's voice was shocked. The Vren are attacking. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be possible. But the sensors didn't lie. The Vren flagship was targeting them deliberately. More shots came. Each one struck with deadly precision. The medical bays had no armor. The ship had no shields. They were never meant to be in combat. People died in their beds, killed while recovering from other wounds. Doctors and nurses died trying to protect their patients. Minji heard the explosions getting closer. She was in Medical Bay 3 when the ceiling began to collapse. She saw the Vren child, the one Yuna had comforted. The girl was staring up in terror. Minji didn't think. She threw herself over the child as the metal came down. Throughout the ship, the medical staff did what they had trained to do. They tried to save everyone, even as they died. They moved patients toward escape pods. They fought fires. They refused to abandon the wounded. Jiwoo was trapped on the bridge, his leg crushed under fallen equipment. He could see the Vren flagship on his screens, still firing. Around him, his bridge crew was dead or dying. He reached for the communication system with bloody hands. "This is Captain Han Jiwoo of the United Human Medical Ship Mercy's Light," he said into all channels. His voice was steady despite the pain. "We are a protected medical vessel. We were treating your wounded. You are killing your own people." Another explosion rocked the ship. Jiwoo felt something break inside his chest. He didn't have much time. He changed the message, broadcasting on frequencies he knew would reach human space. To all human ships. This is the Mercy's Light. The Vren attacked us without cause. They killed us while we saved their own. We died doing our duty. Humanity. Remember this. Remember what they did to those who only wanted to heal. The ship was breaking apart. Daehyun, his uniform burned and bloody, managed to reach the escape pod bay. Yuna was there helping injured crew members into the pods. Suho was working the manual release controls. "We have to go now," Suho shouted over the sound of groaning metal. 73 people made it into the escape pods, out of 2,000. They launched just as the Mercy's Light's reactor began to fail. From the pod viewports, they watched their ship die. They watched it break into pieces. They watched bodies drift into space. Doctors still in their surgical gowns. Nurses holding medical equipment. Patients in their beds. Vren soldiers wearing hospital identification bands. All dead. All murdered while trying to heal. Daehyun held the ship's black box, the record of everything that had happened. His face was expressionless, in shock. Yuna was crying silently. Suho just stared. A transmission came from the Vren flagship. The commander's voice was cold and proud. "The weak deserve no mercy. They sheltered council dogs and traitors. This is the price of sympathy. Let all who would help our enemies see what awaits them." The escape pods drifted in the darkness, surrounded by debris and death. Inside them, the survivors sat in silence. They had watched something sacred die. They had watched the rules that kept civilization together break. And they knew that humanity would have something to say about that.